the next level experience and wisdom and clarity that becomes available is just off the hook.
Welcome to Supernormalized, the podcast where we challenge the conventional, break boundaries, and normalize the supernatural. Join me, CJ, as we explore uncharted realms of existence and unravel the mysteries of our universe. If you have an unusual knowledge or unique story you'd love to share, reach out to me at supernormalized@proton.me. Let's make the supernatural the new normal. Today on Supernormalized, we welcome Tracy King, the host of Gritty Mystic Podcast and Transformational Coach. Tracy is a transformational teacher and intuitive channel who activates potential in her clients. With her expertise, Tracy helps individuals navigate their awakening journey by providing clarity and guidance. Her goal is to help people embody the SoulSelf, just like the spiritual alchemists of old. Tracy shares her transformational formula of align, allow, and be through her channeling and teaching. In conversations about the science of soul, Tracy brings a fresh perspective that helps people find their bearings and embrace their authentic selves amidst these turbulent times. Known for her calming presence, she connects individuals with an inner wisdom and offers practical tools and techniques to unlock their potential. As a transformational coach, Tracy is passionate about accelerating the evolution of consciousness through her work. Before we start today, I just want to say that if you enjoy audio journeying with me, the best way to support Supernormalized is to help me reach more curious minds like yours. So, dear listener, I personally invite you to open up your podcast app right now and hit up the 5-star rating. And please let the algorithms know that this is a conversation worth spreading, so you can tell the world and your friends how much you love the show. Welcome to Supernormalized, Tracy. So, Tracy, you are a transformational coach of sorts. Can you detail that? I mean, you're also the host of the Gritty Mystic podcast. How do those things come together to be? What's going on there?
Great question. Oh, how far back do we go?
Yeah, when did this start? What's your origin story?
Well, Gritty Mystic was born out of my own awakening process. Which was kicked off with what I affectionately call my dumpster fire moment when I was just hyper aware of how out of alignment everything in my life was, and just this intense knowing that there was something more that I really was, being called to pay attention to do, to become, but I was trapped in this way of being, all of these agreements that I had made that were in alignment with the religion I was raised in, but just wasn't me.
What religion were you raised in?
I was raised in Christianity and evangelicalism, very Pentecostal variety, and then transitioned into Calvinism, which is basically intellectual fundamentalism.
Well, wow, it sounds like you got the interesting ones at least.
Oh man, it's insidious though. It's insidious. And so women weren't allowed to go to seminary in this branch that I was a part of. And so I did my own study because I was interested in the historical cultural context of scripture and things like that. And just the pieces started to disintegrate. All of the connective tissue, all of the belief structure just started to disintegrate when I realized that there was more to this story that wasn't being told. And that there was an entirely different conversation happening. And so long story short, I came to a point where I realized that I was in an abusive marriage. I was in an abusive religious structure, and somewhere within me, I found the ability to say no to that I was
Yes.
no longer going to participate in that and perpetuate that. And that was the beginning of this journey of healing and recovery. And what I realized, the steps of spiritual alchemy that later led me to want to really help other people who are finding themselves in the grit and the growth of this transformational process. And so Gritty Mystic on the podcast, I meet with all kinds of coaches and healers and practitioners of all types that are coming alongside and helping people in the different parts of the spiritual alchemy journey, in our journey of becoming. And
Yes.
my own coaching, which I hesitate to call it coaching, but that's the word that I have right now, really
Yeah.
helping people anchor into that soul self perspective, really getting clarity on, what they came here to do and be, and stepping more confidently in that.
Excellent. So as a part of that personal growth and your rejection of the religious structures that you were raised in, did you lose your faith entirely, or did you find another way of looking at it?
Well, I lost faith in institutional structures of religion.
Yes.
So I don't participate in any religion whatsoever. But I realized how expansive my own being is and how interconnected everyone is. And so if you want to call it belief structure, I shifted in my understanding of the reality of all things. And so that not a religion, but just a realization that we have an amazing, expansive, creative capacity to be in charge of what we want to experience here, and instead of just riding the roller coaster and feeling like we have to appease some higher being in order to have a better experience, that we actually have a lot more control than we ever realized.
That sounds like it's got touches on animism as well, with the way you describe that, and maybe you are actually integrating into like a more natural experience of self-religion and self-experience within the world and spirituality. That's cool.
Yeah, I would say if you had to put me in a box, it would be pagan with a lowercase p, because I believe that we're interconnected with the earth and all created things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I appreciate the wisdom and the cycles of nature and our planet and all of that. But I don't participate in any deity structures or religious institutional structures.
Okay, cool. Okay. So, what is the science of soul, according to you?
Yeah, great question. So, I call the process of spiritual alchemy the science of soul. Alchemy has a really interesting story. It predates modern religion.
Yeah.
And it's actually connected to what once upon a time was called the inner mystery of the mystery religions, but it's the secular version of that. And so way back when, before Christianity, in the ancient times, originating probably in ancient Egypt, to the best of our knowledge, was this structure called the mystery religions. We call it the mystery religions now. They didn't call it that then, but
yeah, that's right. That was just religion.
Yeah, it was just this is what we do. But there was this publicly accessible kind of like a parabolic format where there were gods and goddesses and their stories and their struggles, and it was very human, and it kind of taught values and societal like norms and structures to the public. But the inner religion, if one was interested in pursuing a deeper understanding, was this process of realizing that all of those parables and stories are the surface, and beneath the surface is the actuality that we are creator beings. That we're the heroes and the champions of our story, that we can step into our own intuitive and expansive gift set, that we can integrate with our soul self, and we can channel that wisdom into our now moment and, create based on a broader sense of what reality is. And there were many, many, many like copy paste mystery religions back around the first century when Christianity was born. And there's a lot of evidence that suggests that Christianity was pattern matched after the mystery religions, and the fundamentalist Christian faith that we know was the outer religion, and Gnosticism was the inner mystery.
Right.
And it just so happened that they got aligned with a violent emperor who used fundamentalism as a club, right, to beat down adversaries. But alchemy
Yes.
survived because it wasn't associated with a religious structure. It was secular. But it is still all about uncovering the essence of who we are,
Yes.
and embodying one's higher form. And the parable of that was turning lead into gold, right?
Yeah. Right.
But the inner mystery is we transform ourselves from our ego-based self into integrating with our soul self perspective, and what that can mean for how we transform our personal experience and our shared experience. And so the science of soul tells that story, but in a new way within our new context. A lot of the symbolism and the just even the nomenclature in alchemy is very old, and it was meant to obscure truths because, peeps were trying to not die based on persecution of the Christians, right? And so it's a way of really tapping back into these truths, that there are these phases and there are these stages, and we have a "you are here" map in spiritual alchemy. So we understand where we are in our awakening cycle and what modalities or what next steps in our own personal growth we might be aligned with to continue our momentum toward that ultimate like integration with our soul self.
Wow. Cool. It sounds like an excellent process. So how does one embody their soul self? What process is involved
That's a
in
great
that?
question. Well, it starts with several phases of the healing journey of reconciling what beliefs we have accepted that we do or don't actually buy anymore. So
Yeah.
shedding all of the layers of shoulds, shedding all of the, I guess, inherited belief structures, and re-examining what truth means to us. And that's a huge healing process because a lot of our trauma is associated with those structures and the types of crappy behaviors that are perpetuated within those structures.
Right.
And so we have to go on this personal healing journey, acknowledging our pain, but also acknowledging that there's power in the process of healing that. Part of it is understanding the role of our ego self in this life, and a lot of spiritual teachers would talk about ego death, and honestly we can't kill our ego, but we can like put it in the back seat instead of the driver's seat of our experience. And the ego is just here to protect us, but it gets kind of it gets kind of excited about that job and likes to take over everything, right? And so understanding and right sizing the role of the ego in our life is a part of it. And once we kind of have a handle on that, we really develop a new understanding of who we are. And that we're more than that ego self, that there is this more expansive part of us that we actually have access to, that we might have called our guides before, or we might have called angels or ancestors before. That's actually our own broader perspective. And that we have the opportunity to not just like reach out to that and can think of it as far away, but realize it's right here in this moment. And so the integration process is really about anchoring into that point of wisdom that is our essential self, and living it out into our day. So we often will start with having these beautiful moments in meditation or these beautiful moments on retreat where we're like feeling that zinginess. We're feeling that connectedness. We're feeling the live wire of that expansiveness. And the integration process allows us to not just have those beautiful high moments, but to learn how to embody that and walk that out into our relationships, into our decision making,
Yeah.
into, our day to day. And by virtue of living from that perspective, we shift our experience. Everything becomes transformed.
Mm.
And so it's stepwise, and it takes, the foundation of those healing processes first, which we talk a lot about those on Gritty Mystic podcast. But then you are prepared then to really anchor into that truer self that you actually are, and see how that can be channeled into everything you do every day.
Mm. Mm. So as a part of this healing process, do you actually do any work with, say, your family line or your ancestor lines as well?
I don't personally, but I like to feature guests on my podcast that do that work.
Ah,
And
yeah.
I've worked with an epigeneticist, and
Yeah.
that was really a revelation for me. I think it's very, very important work. And yeah, it often, a lot of the pain that we carry, that we have the opportunity to see, heal, and release is related to our families. So
Yes.
it
Yeah.
becomes, very important to work with people who can help us acknowledge those parts of ourselves.
Right. Do you guide people in those directions to when you're working with them? Say, okay, you need to go see this person and see, yeah, right. Yeah.
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 So we can assess kind of where someone is in this "you are here" map that is spiritual alchemy. Which of the phases
Mm.
and stages are they in? And
Mm.
and based on what's presenting for them, I can definitely point them in directions to professionals, practitioners that specifically support those processes and that type of work for them.
Okay. So this is a way of becoming the most authentic and powerful you.
Yeah.
Now, you said there's stages of this, and like obviously people are coming to you in different stages already, but they're a little bit awakened enough to go, "You, I need this." So that's a cool thing.
Yeah.
So basically, you're just grabbing them by the hand and say, "You need this, but you need this, and this as well." How do you recognize what stage people are at? I mean, how do you assess that? That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, each of the stages kind of has some telltale signs
Oh yeah.
that are revealed in the type of what feels intractable in that person's life at the moment, what feels tough and challenging and immovable. Those
Mm,
are clues to the themes that they're working on, and each
okay.
of the 7 phases in spiritual alchemy kind of has its own theme. And so um, that helps us have a conversation around what might support that person in really seeing deeper into what is presenting for them. Because every time we come into contact with conflict, or I call it contrast, is an opportunity to see something in a new way,
Yeah.
so that we can make a choice around it, so
Mm,
that we can decide, what's for us and not for us, so that we can see and heal those parts of us. We can reconcile those pieces, right?
mm,
And so as we're talking, as we're exploring what feels icky, what feels challenging, then there are clues that present themselves. I can kind of, I never tell people, here's what you should do, but
right.
allow them to begin to flex the muscle of what feels in alignment with me.
Mm,
Because the 7 stages have these like 3 overarching themes, and that map onto what I've been working with my own guide team, and the 3 phases, the 3 stages that I call align, allow, and be.
mm,
And so the first 2 phases of alchemy are really about aligning with that authentic self, which is that soul self perspective. And that
yeah.
means that we're kind of burning down a lot of stuff that is no longer for us,
Yeah.
and those structures that have prohibited us from living as our authentic self, right? And
Mm,
so when we're in that align phase and we're really working through trauma, all different types of trauma, then there are lots of different opportunities that we can explore for assisting that process and feeling supported in that. When we're in the allow phase, what I'm listening for is really ways that people are trying to push an agenda upon themselves and then judging themselves for when things don't feel like they're working
Yeah,
according to
right.
plan,
Of course, yeah.
versus the subtle, like connecting with one's, essential self perspective and
Mm,
allowing the universe to speak through them and finding their way into flow instead of thinking they have to do certain things to be a certain way. It's really the other way around, is starting to practice with being, so that they can allow what's meant for them to come into to play for them. And then the B part is really all about that anchoring into oneself and becoming
mm,
their soul self perspective. And so different things present there, like the dark night of the soul might present there.
mm.
The really coming into contact with profound giftedness and feeling afraid to express that giftedness might come there.
Yeah.
So where they are in their being journey will present in different ways, but it allows us to go so much deeper into what they're capable of doing, while remembering there's nothing that we have to do while we're here. There's just a lot of potential for what we can become if we allow it to be.
It sounds like you're also assisting people in tuning into their intuition and what their soul is talking to them about when it comes to their expression of their life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Some people experience that in terms of those inner whispers, those
Mm,
nudges.
mhm,
Sometimes it's entirely in their bodies. Sometimes it's these thoughts that I should do this, talk to this person, consider, this new thing.
mhm.
And sometimes it's formatted like it feels like channeling. It could be through automatic writing. It could
Mm,
be, we formalize it through the format we call channeling, but really what it is connecting to that soul self and
yes.
giving it a voice, right?
Mm,
But
mm.
eventually it just becomes who we are
Yeah,
if
right.
we allow that to be.
Mm,
Yeah.
becomes embodied. Mm. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So that sort of process is a shifting from me to we, as you've
Yeah.
described. So when that happens for people, what happens to them?
Mm. Well, it's actually really gorgeous because in modern culture, where we're taught that in order to become something special, we have to individualize, and we have to be distinct from everyone else. And what we realize in a truly embodied spiritual journey is that we are all one, and that as I go deeper into embodying my soul self perspective, I realize not only am I an expansive being, and a lot of the things that I've attached to throughout my life that would signal success before have literally no meaning anymore.
Yes.
but but that my concerns are no longer for promoting myself.
Yeah.
Therefore, like how we can co-create something better together. So at first, when we're healing, we're really focused on ourself, right? And all of we're being the cycle breaker for our lineage. We're releasing traumas in our life. We're accepting all of the parts that we've shoved into our shadow side that we've thought were shameful before. Now just realize, oh, that's just me. And I can be the higher vibrational, aspect of whatever
Mm,
that is. And I can realize that sex is sacred. And I can realize, all of these things that I've been taught are shameful about myself, that those are untrue stories. But
yes.
then as we go deeper into this process and realize that we're not only powerful creative of our own experience, we are co-creators, then
Yes.
suddenly there's greater work that's possible. And then we can realize I'm not a victim of the tumult that's happening in my culture right now, or in my city,
Mm,
or
mm,
whatever that feels beyond our control, that actually together we've got quite a bit of pull here.
yes.
We've got
Mm.
quite a bit of say, and we have this beautiful opportunity to co-create in new ways that opens up and becomes possible for us.
So it's literally the transformation of the ego led into the gold spirituality of self and unself at the same time, by the sound of it. It's a pretty zen sort of
Absolutely.
space. So
Yeah.
yeah, interesting, very interesting. Just alignment with the Tao and the flow of life. Okay, so you
Yeah.
activate potential in people, and as a part of that, do you teach people to do what you do, or do you just help, or do you, just help individuals or groups at the same time? I mean, how do you work with this? I mean, I don't understand how you'd help many people unless it's all one on one. I don't know.
Yeah. Right now, I'm primarily focused on one-on-one work,
Yeah,
because while I have this, I see the map, I see the process, and I'm networked with all of these beautiful healers and practitioners.
yeah, yeah.
One's journey to getting to this point of integration with the soul self is very individual. And so
Right,
that's
right.
where what I'm calling coaching comes into play. But it really, what I'm doing, it's really a mentorship in being. It's helping, it's coming alongside that individual and helping them sense into where that anchor point is for them, so that while we're
Right.
together, we're practicing that. And so while we're apart, they can still find that
Yes.
and bring that forward and be more present with it in their day-to-day life, and just witness with them what transforms and changes
Mm,
in the
mm,
things that were intractable that we started to work on, right?
yeah,
How that shifts everything. And so it's really a mentoring in embodying one's soul self.
yeah.
I have I don't know exactly how I do it, but when people are with me, they are connected to their voice in a new way. And so
Mm,
they can begin to articulate what they want to need and what they prefer as they're, moving in and among these, nuanced pieces of their healing journey. And so that activates something new inside of them so that they can see things crystallized in a new way.
mm.
And I hold an expansive space, which they then can begin to mirror. And once you feel that expansive space for yourself, and once you anchor into it, then you can begin to create it for yourself, right?
Yeah, right,
And
for
so it's
sure.
very, very much, yeah, a way of, dipping into the pool so that, others can then create that experience for themselves.
So the energy that you embody actually does allow people to crack open in their own personal way. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It is very individual though.
yeah,
And so that's why I'm struggling with some of the words to describe exactly what the process is, because it's so individual at first. But the
yeah.
ultimate place that we land is really finding that authentic space within oneself,
Mm.
and embodying that in day-to-day life. Yeah.
Well, by my read, it's like you are actually reaching for the ineffable anyway. So put words around it's quite hard.
Right. Right. True. What are
Yeah,
words in that space? I don't
that's
know.
right. It's just it's
The
experiencing
feeling.
the now, and this is it. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. Okay, have you noticed any patterns with the people that you work with, like a common stuck points that seem to come up, and then patterns of movement through those stuck points?
Yeah. I Some of the stuckness that I see a lot of the times is being seen as one's authentic self. That being seen piece has been a really big one. And I think, given what's happening in the astrological space right now, is really going to, some stuff is going to break loose in new ways. But when we come through these stages of healing and releasing and realizing and aligning with our authentic self, there's
Mm,
still these attachments to relationships that we have, whether they be family or friends or network or old job, right?
yeah.
And so as people are stepping more, when they find that the alignment with their authentic self, for example, means that they want to shift into a spiritually aligned career, being seen as that person becomes a challenge. So there's this tension between how do I show up as my authentic self and how do I be seen as my authentic self?
Yeah, right. It's like
Know
people
what
being
I'm
afraid of
saying? Yeah.
judgment, right?
Right, right. And so we can really sabotage our own efforts
Yes.
to step more fully into that space when we're carrying that fear, when we're carrying that um I don't know. It can manifest in different ways for different people, but that work is really common from what I'm seeing. And as we're shifting now in the month of July to the Aries and Libra nodes access, we shift to different nodes accesses of the moon every 18 months, and this one is all about authenticity.
Ooh.
It's all about shedding people pleasing. It's
Mm.
all about re-examining every relationship where we've kind of folded ourselves up into a pretzel to be what someone wants us to be for them,
Yes.
and really stepping more firmly into who we really are so that we can be authentic in our
Mm.
relationships, in our way of being, in our career, in our communities. And so I think we're going to see new level of support for that work for all of us in the next 18 months, which I find to be really exciting.
That's excellent. I mean, I didn't know about that aspect of the change in the nodes, but that's very cool. And I'm sure that's going to be a great benefit of many people, in fact, all of society, as ways of being and ways of understanding, ways of expressing the self and ways of self-acceptance get burned away and
Yeah,
changed. That's what's happening. So that's a good thing.
for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. All right. So you've got methods of transformation, and part of that you have mountaintop exercises in being. What does that mean to you, and how do you express that?
Mm. Well, part of that is in these transformational coaching contexts, when we're feeling into this soul self space. But part of it is a vision that I have for the future, where those who are doing this work, who are really in that embodiment day to day work of forming groups where we
Mm.
can sit in being,
Yeah.
and capital B being. And so we would all be anchoring into that soul self perspective, and what can be created when we're able to hold that in space together. It's
Mm.
kind of similar to I don't know if you've spoken to any mediums on your show. A lot of mediums, when they're in training, will have these groups that they sit in, and together they create ease in accessing their gifts and the unseen world when they're
Right.
sitting in circles with others who are doing the same work. And so
Mm.
it's a great way of training, but it's a great way to really sense the nuances of your own inner space,
Mm.
as well as how we're interconnected. And so, yeah, I have a vision for that. It's not quite the right timing, but it's something that anyone can create. So if you have friends or, you know, spiritual entrepreneur colleagues that are really, they're doing this work, they're in this space that
Mm.
you spend time sitting and being together,
Yes.
the next level experience and wisdom and clarity that becomes available is just off the hook. And a lot of times, healers or people who are practitioners who go on retreat together will experience this naturally, but
Yes.
let's bring it to everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Everyone should have a chance to experience that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So as a group, when you bring together the people of like mind, like intention, and like transformation, if you have people in that group which are a little bit more advanced than others, they pull each other up and
Yes,
into the
absolutely.
into the opening of self and change. Years ago, I had an experience with that when I was working with some spirits, and the house of people I was living with was abandoned, and basically, as far as I could tell, everyone was just numb. So,
Yeah.
and I was saying to the spirit, I said, look, I want to make everyone wake up as well. How do we get everyone in this house to wake up together? And the spirit just said to me straight up, look, just be you around them.
Yes, that right there.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
right
And it
there.
worked. And I just noticed over a period of months, people started to ask questions and think in different ways. I was like, yes, it's working.
That's right.
Yeah.
You
So
shifted the gravity in the room. Yeah.
I think I shift it wasn't like it was intentional. It just happened because I was tuning up.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So taking that initiative for yourself helps others. So if you think, oh, I can't do this all alone, well, you won't be, because, as soon as you start doing it, everyone around you starts to wake up and open up and change as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Can't help it.
No, that's it. That's it. Uh, okay. I'm just thinking about the next question. Is there any questions you'd like me to ask?
In alignment with what we've been talking about.
Yeah. Okay, I got an
One
idea.
question.
You
Okay.
go first.
Well, one question that sometimes people will ask me is, what's the end game of all of this, right?
Okay.
Like, we're here in this experience, and if we're going to go through all of these processes of healing and refining and all of that, what's the end game here?
Yeah.
What are we really aiming toward? What
Yes.
does expanded consciousness mean? And the end game, what people have called transcendence in the past, is actually coherence. And so we're in a space now where we're able to integrate what we know about quantum physics into what we know about metaphysics.
Hmm.
And what we know about quantum physics is that when an element is coherent in its vibrational frequency, then everything around it becomes coherent. And so it really has a lot to do with what you just shared, that when you were just standing in your authenticity and being with a capital B,
Yeah.
you brought a new level of awareness and consciousness to everything around you.
Yes.
And so as we are working our way through this spiritual alchemical process of shifting from lead into our own gold, really the end game is coherence. And when we're focusing on our own coherence, we will see radical shifts around us and can then, in concert with others, bring a broader coherence to this experience here. And I hear a lot of people in new age circles talking about ascension. And I caution those that I work with to be wary of anything related to the concept of ascension that is attached to escapism, because that's very much a fundamentalist belief that the earth is trash.
That's
and
it.
it's going to get
Just
burned
leave.
down.
We're going to leave anyway.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter,
and so exactly. Let's do what we can to get on out of here. When in reality, this work of bringing coherence to the experience here is about creating that new earth experience versus escaping one for another one. And so, just really thinking about the fact that whatever you pour into yourself, into your own healing journey, into becoming your most authentic and powerful self, is this coherence work, and it affects not only you but everyone around you. And it's a beautiful thing once you can really stand in confidence around that, to really witness what you're doing. You're a very powerful being.
A lot of this sounds like a good dose of intuition, and we discussed that before. I mean, do you have any tips for people on, like, basically getting in touch with the first steps of grabbing a hold of that intuition and being with it, and maybe even having a taste of their authentic selves? I mean, is there anything that they can do?
Yeah. First is just realizing that we all have access to vast intuitive capability, and just allowing that fact to kind of settle in, that everyone has access to intuition. Everyone has access to, extrasensory ability, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And where it starts is in the body. We're very mental beings in our modern cultures. We're very mentally focused, and we hold a lot of wisdom and trauma in our bodies. And so if we're not hearing our nudges, if intuition is unclear or we're not trusting it, there might be things that we need to shift in our body in order to allow that to come to the surface, because our body is a massive store of wisdom. It is basically our first brain.
Yeah.
And when we can integrate our mind and our body, we have access to deeper, clearer, intuitive wisdom and understanding. And so often at earlier stages in the align and allow processes, one might become involved in like somatic practices, shifting energy in their body, shadow work practices that integrate body movement, like perhaps yoga or other types of fluid movement, to shift our experience in our body, but also to reconnect with feeling our entire body and grounding that into the earth. And then realizing that often these intuitive nudges, these intuitive hits or wisdom occur in our body first before they form thoughts. And so once we're able to really connect with our body and appreciate our body and love on it and release some of the trauma that we might be holding in there, we realize that it's happening all the time.
Yeah,
We are
that's right.
constantly receiving information, and each of our bodies kind of has a way that we like to, like specific areas of our body that we might like to really resonate with new information or receive new information, or perhaps different types of information will manifest in different parts of our body. And that in and of itself is part of the wisdom of interpreting what it means for us. But really connecting with one's body is a first step to allowing intuition to flow more easily with greater ease and clarity in our lives. And then, when we have that acceptance that, yes, we have access to intuition, and we are allowing our body as a fine-tuned communication instrument to pull in that wisdom that is kind of outside of our thinking brain, then we can connect that thinker, and we can start to interpret what those signals mean to us. But if you are spiritually inclined, and with whatever frame works for you, whether it's spiritual alchemy or something else, if you're grounded and you're also connected to that essential self part of you, that's another way to clarify what you're receiving and give it a greater context so that you can develop more nuanced ways of understanding and defining next steps that you would like to take or not take around the information that you receive. And so that's really how it works for everyone. Is first we just realize what our capabilities are. We have to work with our body, but also connect with that higher part of ourselves, that wise, broader perspective of ourselves, and it becomes really easy to understand that information and access a lot more than we ever dreamed possible.
Yeah, it does seem like that if you really do look at it, once you start to wake up to this sort of work and the way that your body's changing and the way that your soul is changing, if you take a careful look back over time, you were always doing it. But the difference is you're now conscious of it.
Right. And you become conscious of times when you ignored those signals and things happened.
As well. Yeah,
Right?
I've had times where I've laid there on the floor just shaking, going, oh no, I sold out of myself. That was bad.
Yep. Oh
Yeah.
man, yeah.
Yeah.
But we don't need to have regrets about it. We can just
No.
realize, hey,
That was just how it was. That's just what happened,
yeah.
It was all a
Now
part
we
of the
can
education.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we are going through quite challenging times, and that's happening for everyone in the West, as far as I know, because it seems to be in the news consistently over and over. Whether that's another PR campaign by them to keep us all in fear, I don't know. But it does seem like there's a lot going on, and that we are facing bigger and greater challenges. Is there any tips for the listeners out there that you'd like to share about how to walk through apocalypse with grace, because apocalypse just means the true revealing. What does that mean for you, and how can people get through that gracefully?
I love that you asked this question and mentioned that, apocalypse is about revealing, because when we think about our own healing journey, we can't heal anything that we don't see, that we aren't willing to pay attention to and attend to.
Yeah.
And when all of this stuff is being churned up like it is right now, this is an opportunity to see what's always been there, but it's been under the surface. It's been lacquered over. And now we for sure have the opportunity collectively to go through these same steps of aligning, allowing, and being, to choose who we want to be together. And with all of this churned up, this is an opportunity to make a different choice. Are we going to tamp things back down? Are we going to invest in institutions that don't have our best interest at heart? Or are we going to stand in our power? Or are we going to align our values with who we become and who we are together? Are we going to take this opportunity to heal all of this stuff that's getting turned up? Because it's not going to go away. We can shove it down again if we want to make that choice. I hope we don't. I hope we choose to really come together and heal it, and realize that we are invested in this together. If you align with unity consciousness, and the fact that we've come here for a purpose, and we have individual meaningful contributions, but together, really what we're here to do is to heal this stuff, and to make way for something new and better, a different experience here. And so I caution, I'm not going to say I'm excited about it, because it's hard. It's so hard. But as I see this happening, I see it as an opportunity. I see all of these challenges and all of this tumult as an opportunity for all of us to step into, what can we co-create together? How can we heal this? What can my contribution be? Again, thinking in terms of our personal coherence, but also broader coherence. How can we bring coherence to this? There's so much opportunity in, and so staying clear of fear is really a big step. Really anchoring in and connecting to that soul self perspective can really help you just kind of siphon off some of those feelings, because that fear feeling is definitely something that's perpetuated in the media, and with too much consumption of one-sided news can really be triggering, right?
Absolutely.
Really feel out of control, really feel like, what the heck? I mean, is this worth it? I mean, all of those thoughts disempower us. And we have the opportunity to step into our power. And so really watching your feeling states is important, and knowing what helps you shift your feeling states. I call them, and I talk on my program and with friends and with clients about having your break the glass practices. So in case of emergency, break the glass. So when you realize you're spinning out, or you're feeling that fear or that dread, like when you realize that you're in that feeling state, what are your go-to practices to really shift that feeling state to at least a more neutral space, so that you can, really be rooted in your own clarity again? Because it's kind of like when we're throwing rocks in a lake here in Minnesota, and as the rocks hit the lake, not only do you have the ripples, but you're churning up the dirt underneath, right? And so no clarity, zero clarity. The water looks all muddy and murky, and you don't know what's swimming in it anymore. But if you're able to at least go to a neutral place at first, and allow that stillness to come in, you have an opportunity to find that clarity and make a different choice. And so really managing those feeling states is our work right now, and it's hard work.
I think managing those feeling states in the right way would be when you actually throw that rock across the lake and it skips instead.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah. No, very good words, and very good recommendations there. I can see that that would help a lot of people, because I mean, we are going through times which, are challenging in different ways for everyone. Now,
For sure.
Tracy, you've got your podcast, The Gritty Mystic, and how can people find you and listen to you and also engage in you and your work?
Mm. Well, you can visit me at grittymystic.com. Gritty Mystic is on all of the major podcast platforms, and you can access them on the website, or if you got a podcasting app on your phone, you can find me there. On the website, you can also learn more about transformational coaching and the work that we've been talking about and
Yes.
what might feel aligned to you. But the podcast comes out with a new conversation every other week and features some really amazing people doing phenomenal work.
Mm.
And surely you'll find someone there that you resonate with that speaks directly to whatever you're going through right now, whatever feels challenging or intractable, whatever feels tender and wants support and attention. There are lots of beautiful souls out there ready to assist. And so, yeah, my website is a hub for everything. I hang out a lot on Instagram. I'm on Threads now, TikTok, but the website is a great place to start.
Excellent. Okay, well, I'll direct everyone to your website and I'll put that in the show notes as well. And yeah, really, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Tracy. And
Yeah.
yeah,
There's a lot of opportunity to really experience something deeper
yes,
in our lives, and you can choose to embrace that if that's part of your journey.
yeah,
It's there for you.
that's right. That's right. Authenticity is something that we all seem to get to in the end because we have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the only way to really attune and become in accord with the universe and the flow of everything.
For sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tracy. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
all power to you in your work.
And you as well. Thank you so much
All
for
right.
holding this beautiful space for us today.
Thank you. All right. Bye for now. It was a pleasure talking to Tracy today. She's definitely on the path of bringing people towards a greater enlightenment of the self. And I think that personally is a great and noble work. So thank you so much again for listening. And if you have anything that you'd like to share in the show, please get in contact with me at supernormalized@proton.me. And until next week, it's bye for now.